What's up YouTube, Tech All-Star here. And for all you newcomers, my channel is drifting and automotive content. So I'll be showcasing my progression as a driver, the things that I may encounter along the way, and eventually I'll be able to go toe-to-toe with the best of the best. So if that's something that interests you, you're more than welcome to stick around and enjoy the show. I did my first round of competition ever, and I did it in my Mustang. So I went to round one of Myrtle Beach Drift, which is actually a series I went to back in like 2019 when it used to actually be in Myrtle Beach, South Carolina. And that venue, or like you say, that series, they were like the first series that I ever seen drifting at. And I know Darin probably don't remember this, but he was like one of the first people I ever seen driving out there. Shout out to Darin, which is the guy with the dark blue GT86 6 with the purple rims. And you know, finally, he actually was the one that convinced me to actually do competition. I was like, I'm not ready for competition, man, bump that. And you know, it's kind of expensive and whatnot. So, because I was just getting into tandeming at my second drift event ever, and I only been drifting for a year. And most of my drifting is on the, on the street and private areas. And those areas, in my opinion, they're good for like the basics and whatnot, but they're not big enough or anything like that to actually be able to train you how to take a course or how to, follow a section, do really tight corners or anything like that. It's just for like little small things. Doing donuts, figure eights, manjis here and there, and that's about it. So actually going to Piedmont was my first time drifting a real course, something to actually follow. Then on my second drift event, which is also Piedmont in January, earlier this year, that was my first time ever tandeming with anybody. And shout out to Daniel, Trevor, Josh, and the other Josh Hoon and Daly for allowing me to drive with them. Because it takes a lot of trust, and every single one of us drove our cars to those events. So we're no trucks and trailers, just driving your dailies to the track, which I also did with this competition. So, Darin convinced me to do it. He's like, this is the best way to learn. And I'm all about trying to learn and get better because this is what I want to do as my actual, way of making a living. I want to be as best as I can because this is what I'm most passionate about. So I ended up deciding to prepare and get ready for it. And I went there. I could only fit 2 sets of tires, which is not enough. I could only fit that in the car because me and my wife were going. And she's my biggest supporter. Shout out to my wife. And we got there and the track is humongous. Or at least humongous to me. You got a big old bank section, then a big infield, and the infield is very versatile with the way you can do the layouts. So finally got teched out. I actually had to get another fire extinguisher because the one I had was leaking, which is a waste of money. So got teched out, went to driver's meeting, actually saw Jonathan Darin there as well, which is really cool to see a FD driver out there. And did my first lap, and on my first lap I spun on the first corner. And I was just learning how to get the car, how to maneuver the car through a tight tollgate style section like that, which to me was, I actually really liked that course because one, it was challenging because, it's a tight course. My car is pretty long, especially the nose of the car. And on top of that, when I actually look this way, so kind of, because you take, in the midsection, you kind of take your car through an outer zone and then you guys switch back to go through that last outer zone. In that end section, I actually cannot see the zone. So I always be a little too far away from it because I can't actually see it when I go over there because of how long the car is. And the visibility in this section right here is not all that great. So that was one of my biggest challenges. And then another challenge that I had was the steering. I didn't have a power steering issue just yet until after the event, but the car, it wouldn't allow me to change the steering modes. And usually I use comfort steering. So you have normal, which is kind of like in between, it's not necessarily heavy, but it's not necessarily soft or loose, I guess you'd say. And then you got sport, which is heavy, kind of simulating almost not having power steering. You have comfort, which is the most assist, gives you less feedback, but it's easier to maneuver. And I use comfort for just regular driving and for drifting, especially because in a car with no self-steer and it's pretty heavy of a car, and the car also gains a lot of camber in the front, so it starts weight jacking. That's a lot of force on the steering. So I couldn't get it in the comfort steering because it's normal for the first practice session. I was struggling with it a little bit because I couldn't chuck the steering fast enough. So what I end up doing, I end up turning the car off, turning it back on, trying to get it to work, and then I think I ended up unplug the ABS fuse, one of the ABS fuses, and it still didn't allow me to change the settings, so then I just put that back in there, unplug the dyno plug, which is the plug that's by the air box, and then I was able to use comfort steering. But then I had another problem. The next problem was if I try to left foot brake, which is like pretty essential to like kind of stabilizing the front of your car, and you can also use that technique to back your car up a little bit from a clip to kind of, you know, pivot the car around the front a little bit. So if I left foot brake, the car would shut down. It literally just shut the engine down, and you lose all power and it just stalls out. So I ended up having that problem when I was chasing Bauer. And again, shout out to another driver, Bauer, Justin Bauer. He was like the first person to allow me to tandem with him. He was like the #1 person I wanted to battle too, because, you know, he was last year's champion, he drives a Mustang as well, and, you know, he was the one guy that I wanted to go against the most out of everyone. And during practice, nobody really wanted to tandem with me because, one, they don't know me, and two, they don't know if they could trust me to, you know, follow them, or they follow me, which is understandable. But he ended up, you know, talking to me, and he was like, "Hey, you can follow me if you want." I was like, "Oh, that's cool." So I tried using the left foot brake, and the car just shut down. I was like, "Nah, I'm not even going to attempt that in competition. I'm not going to attempt that with anybody behind me, because I don't want my car to shut down from me left foot braking. I straighten out and cause somebody to hit me, or I hit somebody else." Go for my first qualifying run, I ended up straightening, and the reason why I ended up straightening was because when I had like brand new tires on the rear, and I had warmed them up prior to getting in line, but we had waited in line for like about 20 minutes or so. So the tires were cold again, and I forgot to do a quick burnout to get some heat into them. So when after I did that first 2 corners and tried to go through the infield, the car could not spin the tires at all. I tried to handbrake it, tried to clutch kick it, it was not working. The tires were just too cold. And those were on like 235, so I'm like, what's the problem? So I couldn't spin them. So I had to do my second run for the knockout qualifying, and I ended up qualifying 32nd, which I was a little disappointed in that, but I was also excited because, you know, one, I still got into the show, and two, it was just amazing to me to even see my name on the board, you know, for the, you know, where they lay out the tournament style or whatever, show who's going against who. That was just, I just thought that was like the coolest thing ever, just to even see my name on the board. And I ended up going against Bauer, and I was like, yep, I called this, which I did. I prayed that I would get a chance to go against Bauer, because not just to be like, oh, I'm going to go beat him, just to learn from somebody that, one, is driving the car that I'm driving, and two, he's one of the best drivers out there. I ended up going against him for top 32. So, you know, I kept it kind of conservative. And another thing that I was struggling with a little bit was I was the only person that did not have an angle kit. Now, an angle kit does not make you a better driver. It's just a tool that you can use to drive the way that you need to drive. And on that particular course, since it's really tight and technical, if you have more angle, it's a little bit easier to take the course. But if you have less angle, a little more shallow. So on the outside, it kind of doesn't look as spectacular. So with that said, I noticed following him and following other people that have angle kits, which everybody had an angle kit except for me for the most part. The issue that I was having was that since I'm at a lower angle, which means lower angle means more speed, and the more angle you have, the slower you are. Nobody was going slow, it's just they had so much more angle, and I had so little angle compared to how much they were throwing. I would gain on them too quickly, which is a reminiscence of when I was at Piedmont, when I was first tandeming. I was actually having that issue a little bit when I was following Trevor and his 370Z, who has an FDF angle kit, big Mantis angle kit. And what I would do, I'll gain on him so quick because I have so little angle compared to how much he's actually throwing, and I'll kind of like freak out a little bit, kind of like, oh, I'm getting too close. What am I supposed to do? I was kind of doing that a little bit, like trying to like stay back a little too much, and I was being really conservative. So then when it came to my lead run, father-in-law, who was being my spotter that day, he was telling me coming through that infield, after I take that second corner to go into the infield, I need to get a little bit wider with the Manji to get into that outer zone through the infield before that last turn. So that's what I was trying to do. And when I did that, if you actually look at my in-car footage, I was trying to chuck the wheel. It literally like stopped like halfway, and then I was trying to force it to counter steer all the way. And when I did that, it would not snap back the other way. And I just ended up driving straight off the track. And I was like, oh my God. dang. And like, you know, the most disappointing part was that I knew that I could do better, but you know, it is what it is. I'm losing the Bauer, which, you know, I ain't got no problem with that at all. I have no problem losing to anybody, because again, that was, at the end of the day, that was still an amazing time. Had an absolute blast out there, driving with everybody. Will I be to any other rounds? Maybe. I know round 2 was this past weekend, as far as the time that I'm recording this. It was this past weekend, round 2, and round 3 is next month. I don't know if I'm gonna make it to those events or whatnot, because when I gotta source a power steering rack, gotta get tires, stuff like that, and then gotta make sure, you know, got the funds to actually make it out to the track and be able to come back, etc., etc., etc. So, you know, even if I don't do any more rounds as far as this go, I still absolutely enjoyed the experience. And of course, when the time comes and when I'm ready for it, I'm definitely coming back and I'm gonna come out full swinging with it. And as well, I would like to try a bunch of other tracks, like Catch My Drift. I plan on going to Lanier later this year to meet with my buddy Kevin and Jake Roberts, who also drift Mustangs. That was round 1. That was my experience, and I had an absolute blast. Like I said, shout out to everybody that came out there and drove me and helped me. I'll see you guys in the next one.